Hi, I'm Maeghan Gibson. I'm a senior at Florida State University. I major in biology. So I chose a project that interests me, which is animal behavior, specifically how animal behavior relates to human behavior in terms of what influences us in determining what's attractive. So this is going to look at three major properties: the physicality of a potential mate, their physiology or biochemistry, and the behavior of our potential mate. So we're going to start with the physical. On the left, you can see a female funnel web spider. In a study done, females were presented with a series of males. Each of these males varied in how symmetric they were. What was found was that the females preferred males with a high symmetric score. And then the study on the right was done on humans, where we were given a series of faces and asked to determine which was the most attractive. And again, it was found that we liked symmetry. The most extensive study was done in Jamaica, where dancers were asked to dance to a specific piece of music for an allotted amount of time. This was recorded and then stripped down to the CG image you see here. This CG image was then shown to a series of judges who were asked to determine whether the dancer was male or female, how attractive they found the dancer, and whether the dancer was good or not so much. What they found was that females were really good at guessing whether or not the dancer was male or female, but that it didn't matter who was judging. They all managed to find that the dancer that was most attractive was the one who was the best dancer. And then when they measured each of the dancers, they found again that symmetry was correlated with how attractive you were. The higher your symmetric score, the higher your attractiveness. It's thought that this comes from development. As we develop, environmental stresses can be placed upon us, which would cause us to develop poorly. But if you have strong genes, you can counteract these effects and still develop normally, which is why we would look for a mate who is most symmetric and has developed most properly. But it's not all just symmetry. There's also some biochemical elements to the way we choose a mate. On the left here you see a squirrel. This is a Belding's ground squirrel. This squirrel, the females of the species, mark their territory using scent. And then they are aggressive towards scents which are very different from their own, especially towards males. However, if a female who is related to this squirrel marks in the territory, she's far less aggressive, even if she hasn't met the squirrel. Now, while our noses aren't nearly as in tune as a squirrel's, we can detect some scents. The study that was done regarding this took a series of males, put them all in very specific environmental conditions. They slept in similar beds, they ate similar foods, wore similar clothing, used the same deodorant, same body wash. That way their scents would be purely their own. Every night they were asked to sleep in identical white t-shirts. After 2 weeks, they removed these shirts and bagged them up. These bagged shirts were then given to a bunch of females. Females opened the bags, sniffed the shirts, and then made a judgment on how attractive they found the scent of the potential male. What they found was that females, after smelling, and this is purely off of scent, they did have a high preference for certain kinds of males. And then they looked at the different attributes of the males to determine what attribute it was that they were looking for. And what they found was females enjoy males who have a scent of a very different MHC complex. MHC is the major histocompatibility complex in the immune system. And what it does is it presents foreign antigens, so invaders to our body. It presents these to lymphocytes for destruction or other immune responses. So the advantage of choosing a mate who is very different from yourself in terms of his MHC is that you can give your offspring the widest variety of MHC. So you both pass on your genes and they have the widest chance of stopping a foreign invader. And then there's some behavioral aspects as well. These are a series of courtship behaviors in different kinds of birds. On the top left, you can see a satin bowerbird who has built a bower for his potential mate and brought her favorite trinkets. On the top right, there's a royal tern who is courtship feeding his potential mate. And on the lower right is a bird of paradise who is displaying for his potential mate. Each of these behaviors has a correlation to either high genetic quality or high parental quality. So the one on the top left here, she will judge based on how well he builds his house and how well he can find her favorite trinkets. Now these do seem rather trivial, but the trinkets indicate that he is good at finding things, which could be food as well. So that is a quality she'll want to pass to her offspring, so that they can also find food well. Food is also a factor in the royal terns here who are feeding on the top right. So if this male can feed his female well, he will also be able to take some of the load off her and feed her young. And then on the lower right, we have the one that seems to correlate very little with parental care, but his very bright blue display means that he has a high level of testosterone. And this high level of testosterone will often depress his immune system. But again, if he has very strong genes, he can counteract that effect and still display and be healthy. So that's a quality a female would look for in wanting to pass that on to her future offspring. Now, each of these behaviors in birds has a correlation in humans. We like to dress up when we go out. We like to eat different kinds of food. We prefer our date to bring us different kinds of trinkets, such as flowers or necklaces or something along that lines. We build big houses and buy fancy cars to impress a mate. So it stands to reason that even though we're very different from birds, the reasons that we date and court in similar manners are to find good genes for our offspring and high parental care. All right, so despite what Hollywood would like to tell us, we are just animals, and we are subject to the same whims of physical, chemical, and behavioral influences of all other animals. Thank you.